Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In today's video, I am going to be redrafting the 2018 NBA Draft. However, before I get too far into it, I would like to remind you all to leave a like and subscribe. I've been appreciating all the support that I've been receiving lately, and I hope to see that continue. Now, without further ado, let's get into the redraft. We'll start with some honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is Jalen Brunson. He was strongly considered for that last spot because of his ability to come off the bench for a good team and provide a lot of shot creation ability, but it wasn't quite enough to get him onto the list. Kevin Huerter profiles as a 3-and-D wing long term. I just wasn't sure that I trust his defensive ability enough to vault him over some of the guys that ended up making it into the 13 or 14 spot on this list. Gary Trent, similar to Huerter, was very close because of his three-point shooting, but not sure that he's quite good enough on defense. And last but not least, Shai Milton is an honorable mention. He's a really strong scorer, but I'm not sure that he is efficient enough or a good enough defender to really be one of the top 14 guys in a redraft of this class. With all of that being said, I think we are ready to start at the top. And with the number 1 pick, I have the obvious guy going off the board, and that being Luka Doncic. Doncic has been a superstar already, both in his second season of his career and so far in his third season. He's been a top 5 MVP candidate. He is a high-level scorer. He can run the pick and roll at an extremely high level and is a very creative guy. He can score at all 3 levels. He's one of the best passers in the league, and he's a really good rebounder for a guard as well. On defense, he has improved and is able to actually take on some more difficult matchups at this point in the season, and I think that Luka is terrific. He's probably one of the guys in the league right now that has a chance to dominate for the next decade or so. So he's the easy pick at number 1, and so that's where I have him going. Also, this has nothing to do with the teams that's selected in these draft spots. It's basically just saying where I think that each player should go, assuming that it's just a regular roster. With the second pick, I have Shai GilgeousAlexander going off the board. It was tough for me to choose between him and the guy I have at number 3, but I ended up going with Shai. He is a very good pick and roll initiator. He's a solid passer and has really improved in that so far in his third season. He's capable of making shots at all 3 levels and is an efficient scorer. And he's also shown an ability to use his length in order to be a plus defender. I think Shai profiles as a guy who can probably be the second best player on a championship team moving forward through his career, and that is so valuable. He probably has the ceiling of being something like the 15th best player in the league, and if you're getting that with the second pick, then it's clearly a pretty good draft. So Shai is number 2. At number 3, we have a guy who maybe has a higher ceiling than Shai, but I just have questions about his game as a whole, and that's Trae Young. Young is one of the best volume scorers in the league. He's also a great passer, as last season we saw him average close to 30 points and 10 assists. This year so far it's been like 27 points and 9 assists, and he's just a great on-the-ball player. He can knock down shots from long range. He's one of the logo shooters in the league. He has an excellent floater game. He's a creative finisher in the lane. He's a great passer. He can really run the pick and roll at a high level, and he's become one of the best players at drawing fouls in the entire league. The questions come more on defense. He is so bad there because he's so small in size and just has a bit of a tendency to exhibit some lassitude and be lazy on that end of the floor. And that makes me question whether or not he's going to be able to be on a really good team at any point in his career, because defense wins championships, and Trae Young is one of the worst defenders in the league. I ended up putting Shai above him because I just trust Shai's game as a whole a little bit more than I do Trae's. However, I certainly understand the debate to put Trae up there at number 2. Not where I would go, but it makes sense to me. At number 4, I have someone who I was kind of shocked to put this high, but it just makes sense, and that is Michael Porter Jr. Porter went 13th in his actual draft class because of some injury questions and questions about his character, but I just think that his ceiling is so high. He's probably a guy who could score 25 points per game on outstanding efficiency, and that is so valuable to an NBA team. He probably has the best shot at being the best player on a championship team out of any player on this list aside from Luka Doncic. And I just have a hard time taking players like DeAndre Ayton or Colin Sexton or Jaren Jackson over a guy with that ridiculously high ceiling. There are the negatives. The character stuff is questionable. He's expressed doubts on whether or not COVID-19 is a real thing. So that's not great. He has questioned his role on the team and demanded the ball more often. He has shown that he's not afraid to take shots, even if it's not always the right thing to do. And on defense, he looks lost at times. But he has such great physical tools, and he's such a great shooter that I had a hard time dropping him further than this. So Mikal Porter Jr. is 4th in this redraft. At number 5, I have Colin Sexton. Sexton has been one of the biggest surprises of the NBA season so far. He's averaging 24 points on solid efficiency. He's also been an improved playmaker and defender, as he's right around average on the defensive end of the floor, which is shocking considering how poor he was on defense last season. And passing, his assist rate has also taken a solid jump. I think that Sexton is a guy who can average 20 plus points per game on good efficiency like he is this season, and that is so valuable to a team. He's also still young, still has a chance to improve. I see a ceiling for this guy as something of a Bradley Beal type. He's much smaller than Beal, and that's going to limit how good he can be defensively, but I think he's got a real shot to be an elite scorer in the NBA, and I think that that's more valuable than someone you're just drafting to be a role player. With the 6th pick, I'm going with said role player. However, this guy has a chance to be one of the best role players in the league, and that's Mikal Bridges. If you've been watching my videos for a long time, you know that I am ridiculously high on Bridges. I think that he has a chance to be an extremely high level. Think top 35 or top 40 player in the league because of his ability as a defensive player and as a shooter. This might be a little bit of a stretch, taking him above players like Ayton and Jackson and even Mitchell Robinson, but I really love Bridges' game. I think that on offense, he's going to be able to succeed and score in the high teens on average because of his ability as a knockdown shooter and someone who can do a little bit more of shot creation stuff off of the dribble. I just think that 3-and-D skill set is so valuable in the NBA, and I'd be willing to take Mikal Bridges a lot higher in a redraft than I think most people would. At number 7, we have his current teammate on the Phoenix Suns in DeAndre Ayton. Ayton is another guy that I like quite a bit, although not quite as much as Bridges. And I think that the fact that the Suns have 2 guys in the top 7 of this redraft on their roster exhibits how well they have done with drafting. I get it, they didn't end up with Luka, but both Ayton and Bridges are going to be outstanding players for them moving forward. Ayton's game as a big man who can excel as an offensive rebounder and rim running big guy who also can do some stuff in the post and is starting to develop a 3-point game, can be super high level offensively. I have a few more questions about his defense. Is he going to be a high level rim protector? I'm not sure yet. But that offensive game is special, and I think that DeAndre Ayton is going to be a very good player. His ceiling is probably quite a bit higher than that of Bridges, but if the defense doesn't come along, I don't think that he'll be as equitable to a very good team, so I would take Bridges over him, but it's really close in my mind. At number 8, we have Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, I think Jackson Jr. would maybe go as high as number 2 in a lot of people's 2018 NBA redraft. But he's a guy that I am just not as high on as most people. I don't think that his game is particularly excellent for today's NBA. Now that may be a bit shocking because he's a big guy who can space the floor and shoot the 3. And that is great and all, but I view him as kind of a tweener. I don't know if he's a 4 or a 5. He's a good rim protector, which would allow him to play the 5, but he also is very foul prone, and he's not a good rebounder. So that would probably make him more of a 4. But if he's a 4, then he's going to be forced to guard on the perimeter a little bit more, and that's going to limit how much rim protection stuff he's going to be able to do. So Jaren Jackson Jr. is a defensive enigma in terms of his position. On offense, he can shoot it, but how much more can he do? He's shown a bit of a post game, but I'm not sure that that's the highest form of offensive efficiency. Obviously, this guy is very good. He can shoot it, and he can block shots. But the rest of his game, I have some questions. I think he's probably more of a role player long term, and a very good role player. A role player who can be the 4th best player on an excellent team. But do I think he can be much more than that? No, probably not. And that's why I have him down here at number 8. With the 9th pick, I have another one of my favorite guys in the league at this current point in Donte DiVincenzo going off the board. DiVincenzo is just an excellent role player. What he does for the Milwaukee Bucks is so important to their team. He can guard multiple positions defensively, is a great rebounder for a guard. He can shoot it, and he's really broken out this season, shooting 40+% from 3, although that number has gone down from, I think, what was over 50% for a large part of the season because of a recent slump. But he also can do some stuff off the dribble, is a solid passer. I think Donte is a very good player. I think he's going to be a starter in this league for a long time, and I would take him here at number 9 in a redraft. At number 10, we have Mitchell Robinson. Similar to DiVincenzo, this is a player that I think is going to be a starter in the NBA for a long time. He is a little bit like Jaren Jackson Jr. in that he's an excellent rim protector who is also pretty foul prone, but he's even better at that rim protection skill than Jaren Jackson is. For him, the reason why he's lower than Triple J is because of his offensive game. He doesn't have the same level of shooting ability, not even close, as he doesn't really take shots outside of the paint as Jackson Jr. does, and that limits how effective he can be. Similar to Jaren, he's a great player in the pick and roll, and he's able to throw down lobs at a high level, but if he could shoot it, I think that he would have a much better chance of sticking as a starter in the NBA. However, because of the rim running and the shot blocking, he's a very nice player, and I think that 10th is right around the right spot for him. At number 11, we have the single biggest riser in this redraft, and that would be Duncan Robinson. Robinson went undrafted in real life, and the Miami Heat have turned his career around by helping him to develop into one of the best shooters in the world, and he has really helped their team succeed over the past few years. He can shoot it off the dribble, he can shoot it off the catch, he can shoot it off movement. This guy can knock down a shot no matter how you slice it. The rest of his game is a little bit lacking. He isn't a super shot creator off the dribble, and his defense, well, he does play very hard. Sometimes, or I guess most of the time, leaves a lot to want. And I think that the shooting skill is excellent, and he's shown that he can stay on the court in the playoffs, but I'm not sure that he does too much besides that in order to warrant me having him higher than this on this list. At number 12, we have Wendell Carter Jr. Carter Jr. is someone that I think is a starter long-term in the NBA, and that is why I've got him here. He can protect the rim, although he has struggled a little bit with that so far this season. He's not doing that at the rate that you would want him to, and he also hasn't really shot the ball too well and hasn't done much on offense. People are saying that this has been, or Rusty Buckets on YouTube has said that this has been a good start to the season for Wendell, and I don't really agree. He also has been injury prone to open up his career, and that also hurts his status in this redraft. Do I still believe in Wendell? Yes, I do. I think that he's going to have a good NBA career. But do I think that he is going to have a better career than some of the other centers in this draft, like Ayton, Jackson, and Robinson? No, probably not, and that's why he's here at 12. At number 13, we have one of the biggest fallers, guy who went second in the real draft, and that's Marvin Bagley. Bagley has had a very difficult start to his NBA career, as he has shown that he is going to be in and out of the lineup with injuries, and that when he has been on the court, he hasn't been all that great either. He's not a starter level player in the league at this point. But there is a lot of potential here as a big guy who can score the ball. I'm not sure what his true position is going to be, whether he's a 4 or a 5, but there's at least some potential here. This is a bit of a gamble pick, and I don't really think that there's any other players in this draft class aside from those top 12 guys I named over Bagley that are locks to be starters for the rest of their careers. So at this point, it seems like a good spot to use that lottery ticket on Bagley. So I've got him at 13. Finally, at 14, we have DAnthony Melton. Now, Melton is maybe a little optimistic to have him at 14 as I do, but I really like his game. He's an excellent defensive player. He's got some ability as a slasher and cutter who can score at the rim. His jump shot has been better so far this season, as it has risen from, I believe, 29% from 3 last season to 35% in his first 7 games so far this year. He is also an absolute lockdown defender. He can guard multiple positions. He can block shots and rebound at a very high level for a guard, even though he is only 6'2". He plays very hard and is someone that I think is going to be a starter long term. I don't think that it's as much of a cinch as it is for a lot of the guys above him, and there's a chance that he'll be a bench player, but I think that he's very useful. He's a lockdown defender, and if that jump shot comes along, I think he has a chance to be an incredibly valuable 3 and D guy from either guard position. That is my list of a 2018 NBA Lottery Redraft. Let me know what picks you guys agreed with and disagreed with in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. That's going to be it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.